Hello, and welcome to episode number 23 of Wrestlerotica, the podcast that combines erotica with wrestling fan fiction. This week we have 3 stories that focus on Lucha Underground. The first story is entitled The Lick of Death. In this story, Catrina finds Ivelisse alone in the temple, where she then takes control of her. The second story is entitled At the End of the Tunnel. Dario Cueto orders the unlikely trio known as Angelico, Ivelisse, and Son of Havoc to live together in an apartment. However, Dario's plan soon backfires on him. The third and final story this week is a Wrestlerotica original. This story is entitled Melissa Santos' Own Ultima Lucha. On the last night of taping Lucha Underground, Melissa Santos is comforted by a returning Melina. Without further ado, let's get to this week's stories. This story is entitled The Lick of Death, and it is written by Evil from CSSA. God can't help you now. Those words rang through the head of Ivelisse repeatedly in the hours since the incident, as she referred to it, had happened. Ivelisse, Angelico, and Son of Havoc had been training when she had showed up, talking in riddles and touching Ivelisse. Ivelisse didn't like being touched. For some reason, which still escaped Ivelisse's reasoning, she was unusually passive at the advances of Catrina, and it let her guard down when she held up the stone. That stone! There has to be something about it, Ivelisse thought to herself, remembering the incident and getting angrier by the second. The next thing Ivelisse knew, she was getting helped off of the ground by some of the Lucha Underground security and ring crews. Neither of her idiot partners could remember what had happened. Ivelisse slammed her locker shut in anger, making her partners jump at the sudden sound. What? Asked Son of Havoc. I'm going to get her, Ivelisse stated. Who is it this time? Angelico asked in his thick South American accent. That bitch and her goons, Ivelisse said, not mentioning them by name. You mean that shit from earlier? Havoc asked. What do you think I'm talking about? She spat back, limping hard to grab her crutches. She began limping for the door, not listening to her partners behind her. She was going to get her payback, one way or another. You know that's a stupid move, right? Son of Havoc shouted. Dude, let her go. She's going to do this no matter if we want her to. Angelico replied as Ivelisse limped away. Sometime later, in a different part of the temple, Ivelisse had seen one of the disciples of death sneak into one of the alcoves deep below the temple, and she had followed him, thinking he could lead her to Catrina. As soon as she turned the corner, he was gone. At that moment, the lights began to flicker. Ivelisse smiled. She knew this is what happened the last time. What she didn't see was Muertes appearing in the hallway behind her. He disappeared when she turned around. At that moment, Ivelisse felt a gentle touch trance itself along the back of her neck. A cold chill went through her body, and she turned to find herself face to face with the smirking Catrina. Those same feelings briefly came back, fighting for dominance inside Ivelisse's mind. Confusion, emptiness, and a bit of arousal, before her anger took the forefront again. Ivelisse dropped her crutches and put up her fist. Catrina chuckled. A girl coming to find a fight, even she knows she cannot win, Catrina stated as she slowly walked around Ivelisse. Ivelisse spun and took a swing at Catrina, who ducked the punch and sent Ivelisse crashing into a nearby wall. Before Ivelisse knew it, Catrina had her arm on the back of Ivelisse's neck. Or maybe there is something else you were looking for, Catrina stated, backing off and letting Ivelisse gather herself. What are you talking about? Ivelisse asked as she grabbed her crutches. You didn't reject my advances earlier, Catrina stated. For the first time, Ivelisse noticed that Catrina was holding the stone. Those same feelings from the last time returned in full force. That doesn't mean Ivelisse's words stopped as Catrina ran her fingers across Ivelisse's cheek. Shh, Catrina said. We both know why you really came looking for me. You came looking for something you haven't had in a really long time. But Ivelisse stammered. Shh! Hush now. Follow me. Catrina gently commanded. She spun on her heel, knowing Ivelisse would follow her. Ivelisse followed, her mind fighting her body the entire time. Moments later, Catrina pushed the door open to a hidden room in the temple. Inside it was a bed and a dresser. It wasn't much for someone to live in, more like crashing for a few nights. Catrina pointed to the bed in the corner, and Ivelisse sat down on it, putting her crutches on the floor. Ivelisse looked up at Catrina, wondering what was going to happen next. She thought about making a run for the door, but her broken ankle would ensure she wouldn't get very far, and her body wasn't obeying her commands to get up and run for it. Catrina set the stone on the dresser and reached behind her neck, undoing the snaps on her cat suit. She turned to face Ivelisse as her breast dropped into view. The once fiery Puerto Rican blushed and tried to look away, but couldn't. Catrina wouldn't allow her to. Catrina crawled onto the bed as Ivelisse adjusted herself to accommodate her, leaning up against the wall with the pillows under her. Catrina looked right into her eyes as she undid the workout pants Ivelisse had on. She grabbed the straps of the thong she had on and removed them on one swoop. In one fell swoop, bumping the cast Ivelisse still had on her ankle, causing her to wince in pain. Catrina paid it no mind and dived forward, tonguing Ivelisse's clit. She held a tight grip on the injured woman, but relaxed it slightly, knowing she wouldn't try to make a run for it. Instead, Ivelisse's fingers slid through her hair and tugged. Catrina moaned as she slid her tongue into Ivelisse's moist pussy. Ivelisse moaned very loud, enough to cause Catrina to stop briefly. Meanwhile, in another part of the temple's underbelly, a cage door rattled slightly. As soon as that rattle was heard, a slam came from another cage. Both cages soon fell silent. Catrina slid her finger deep into Ivelisse. Her tongue moved along the wet folds of Ivelisse's pussy. She suckled and pulled at the flesh of her lower lips as her nose teased at Ivelisse's clit. Ivelisse's hands pulled and ripped at the pillow above her head as Catrina teased her body, bringing her to the brink and then slowing down, causing much more frustration in the mind of the entranced Latina. Catrina moved her tongue, moved to swirl around Ivelisse's throbbing clit. Ivelisse's moans filled Catrina's ears as Ivelisse's hips wiggled and her thighs clenched. She orgasmed very loud and took several deep breaths as she came down from her orgasmic high. Ivelisse finally came back to reality to see Catrina over her. You still got... Catrina put her finger to Ivelisse's lips, silencing her instantly. Do you want to return the favor? Catrina asked. God, yes! Give me a hell yeah! Ivelisse said, not realizing she said it out loud. Catrina smirked and climbed back on the bed, hovering herself over Ivelisse. Catrina said nothing as Ivelisse began to gently lick. Ivelisse nibbled on Catrina's tits as she moved her fingers down to the totally shaven pussy between Catrina's lips. Catrina settled Ivelisse's fingers inside her and began to slowly move up and down, fucking herself on Ivelisse's fingers. Catrina's hands grabbed Ivelisse's breast, squeezing them tight enough to make her scream. It didn't hurt. It felt good. Ivelisse moaned in pleasure as the ravishing woman continues to fuck herself using the Latina's fingers. Catrina kissed Ivelisse on the lips as she climaxed, keeping her moans silent, and into the mouth of her injured lover. Once Catrina broke the kiss, both women breathed deeply and sighed in exhaustion. After a few moments to regain herself, Catrina got off the bed and quickly redressed, tossing Ivelisse her clothes as well. Ivelisse kept looking at Catrina the entire time, making the dark-haired woman smirk. So, are we? Ivelisse asked. Catrina again put a finger to Ivelisse's lips, silencing her. Don't worry, darling. You won't remember this at all. No! No! Catrina said as she held up the stone. Thunder and lightning could be heard, causing Ivelisse to look around. When she looked back at Catrina, her eyes were flashing in the dark. Electricity shot from Catrina's eyes into Ivelisse's, and before she knew what hit her, Ivelisse fell back on the bed, unconscious. The disciples of death appeared out of nowhere around Catrina, Take her back to where we found her, and leave her there. Catrina smirked. Thunder and lightning flashed again, and she disappeared. The next morning, the temple windows were showing signs of morning, as the Southern California sun shone through them. Dario Cueto, founder of Lucha Underground, approached his office, ready for another day of total control of his world.
It's a beautiful morning.
Before he could enter his office, he noticed something. A body lying in the middle of the ring. Usually the bodies didn't hit the mat in his ring until later that night. As he approached the ring, he saw that it was Ivelisse, as her now telltale crutches lay on the ring apron right next to her. Dario rushed around the ring to the timekeeper's table. He picked up the hammer and rang the bell several times to arouse Ivelisse from her slumber. "What the?" Ivelisse said, waking up unaware of her surroundings. "You trained too hard last night?" Dario asked, with a smirk across his face. Ivelisse grabbed her crutches and slid out of the ring, her head still pounding. "What happened to me last night?" she asked herself as she limped away from the ring area. The end. This story is entitled At the End of the Tunnel, and it is written by Archive of Our Own user FunkyinFishnet. It had been Dario's joke, his delight most fucking likely, getting Son of Havoc, Angelico, and Ivelisse all living in the same apartment together. Dario had looked so smug when he told them the news. "It will give you all a chance to bond, which you obviously need," he had said, safe behind his desk, and at such a reasonable rent too. How can you complain? All three of them did. Very loudly. Dario had weathered it for a while, before telling them all to leave his office, before he had them put into a match with 3 other trios teams. He hadn't been joking. So the trios champions, who practically couldn't stand the sight of each other, now found themselves sharing an apartment. It was decently furnished. They all had separate bedrooms, thank God. Everything worked in the kitchen and bathroom. Dario had made sure that they couldn't complain about their surroundings. But the company? Forget it! At first, anyway. Ivelisse still started fights over the smallest things. She hobbled around on crutches because her foot was still broken and expected her housemates to open doors for her, get her dinner, do her laundry, all without any thanks or gratitude from her. Yeah, Son of Havoc was used to that, but he dumped her, so he shouldn't have to deal with that anymore. Clearly, nobody told Ivelisse that. She was still the toughest woman he'd ever met. She'd finished their title match on a broken foot. She'd helped the team fight off the crew in 2 matches afterward too. Son of Havoc admired her for that. She had his respect. She was still gorgeous too, bright-eyed and fiery, with the hard body that Havoc had always loved. But she still snarled and drew blood, even though it'd push him into leaving her in the first place. A part of Son of Havoc, a lot of him when he was being completely honest with himself, loved that as well. So he spent a lot of time feeling regretful, angry, horny, and frustrated around Ivelisse. He was used to feeling complicated and crazy when it came to her. She was just as rough with Angelico. It definitely didn't help that his heated admiration for her frequently showed up in his smirk. Ivelisse still yelled at him for leaving towels on the bathroom floor, for not putting the butter back in the fridge, for changing the channel when she was watching TV, for just existing. Angelico was probably doing it all on purpose. It was his funeral. Son of Havoc spent a lot of time out of there and riding his motorbike. There was nothing like the open road for clearing his mind and making everything else fall away. If he sometimes missed the feel of leather, clad legs wrapped securely around his waist as he rode, or the sight of a bike besides his, then he could handle that. Everyone had memories that lingered, right? When he was in the apartment, he and Angelico clashed in a different way. Angelico was a cocky son of a bitch. He was sleazy around Ivelisse.
Get sleazy, get sleazy, get sleazy, get sleazy.
In a way that made Son of Havoc's skin crawl, and he liked getting under both Ivelisse and Havoc's skin with his innocuous-seeming comments that weren't innocuous at all. He was an expert at it. He also tended to eat the last of the leftovers and buy shitty beer.
Shitty beer, shitty beer, shitty beer, shitty beer, shitty beer, shitty beer, shitty beer.
He was infuriating, and he knew it. Havoc ground his teeth and glared a lot, and snapped back because he couldn't help it. Angelico frequently made Havoc feel like he wanted to explode. His head rang almost constantly too, because of the different fights he found himself embroiled in, thanks to his living situation. Then one night, after a seriously trying day that involved several bottles getting thrown at him and having to overpay on a bike tune-up, Havoc grilled steak on the stovetop and worked out that he'd cut up way too many potatoes when Angelico dipped into the kitchen. He was wearing his ever-present ball cap and was shirtless, because he seemed to prefer that, and because he was probably hoping that it'd drive Ivelisse the right kind of wild. He was always in good shape.
Ooh, look at this creation!
Son of Havoc noted. Angelico worked out a lot, in and out of the apartment. Oh, making dinner for me? Son of Havoc took a deep breath and bit down on the words boiling up inside of him. He was not going to react tonight. He was going to have a good evening after his shit-tastic day. So he was going to shut this down by, well, he had plenty of potatoes, and the steak would stretch between the two of them. Kill with kindness. It's a really new tactic, considering how the two of them usually communicated. Why not? Havoc was not in the mood for the usual. Sure, grab the plates, will ya? There was silence, and Son of Havoc grinned to himself as he heard a cupboard door open, and a couple of plates were then slid along the countertop to his elbow. Well, well, well. Thanks. More silence. It felt surprisingly good. Angelico stood close for a minute, looking at Havoc, his expression only adding to the good feeling. He looked so much less grating when he lost the smirk. Havoc eased back, pushing Angelico with him when the pan's grease spat violently. Careful. When he eventually served everything up, Angelico was sat at the small kitchen table. Everything they needed set out, and oh, a decent beer too. Very nice. Havoc nodded his thanks and put the plates down. He lifted his beer towards Angelico. Angelico gestured the same back. This was different, quieter, warmer, much less painful. They ate companionably. Angelico complimented the food and ate everything. He didn't offer to do the dishes, and he left his cutlery on Havoc's plate. He nudged his ankles tight against Havoc's, like he was just desperate for a reaction. Havoc didn't even twitch. Like he noted, this felt good, and Angelico was in good shape. Angelico definitely watched Son of Havoc more after that, and he touched Havoc more too, sweeping a hand across his hip, his elbow, as he passed close by, even tweaking Havoc's beard. Maybe part of it was a test, a new game, trying to get under Havoc's skin, but Havoc pressed back, because he enjoyed it, and because he could see how Angelico was getting affected too. Angelico was still cocky. He still smirked, but he didn't make Havoc grind his teeth as much, or feel like he was gonna explode. Havoc had less of a headache now as well. That was really something. It all still felt good too. Ivelisse had noticed that something had changed. She looked at them with narrow eyes, like she was tempted to throw her crutches at them, like she didn't like this one bit. She sneered and dismissed them, but she still watched attentively. That felt good too. Then one day, Havoc was passing by the bathroom, checking his phone, when Angelico emerged after a shower, a towel slung over his shoulder, with nothing covering him up below the waist.
Holy cow!
He grinned at Havoc and lounged against the doorframe. This was definitely a challenge, but Havoc could see the glimmer in Angelico's eyes, the clear want. That wasn't a surprise, and Havoc looked back, because yes, Angelico looked good. Havoc could appreciate everything now. Whether he wanted to or not, he wanted to. He looked Angelico up and down, his gaze heated. It was that good feeling again, wasn't it? The one that had been making itself known since that dinner. Only now, it was like the feeling was igniting. And of course, Havoc felt the realization ripple through him, coupled with a sense of how in the hell hadn't he properly recognized this for what it was before. Angelico's eyes still glimmered, and his grin twisted hard. The heat and good feeling notched up inside of Havoc. Well then. Havoc tucked his phone away and tipped his head to one side, his posture an invitation. Angelico didn't back off. Instead, he slunk closer. Havoc reached out and tugged the towel off and away from Angelico's shoulder, making a point. Angelico smirked, clearly, completely sure of how good he looked. Well, he did have a very pretty mouth. The good feeling was going up further gears now. It was time for rubber to burn. Son of Havoc unzipped his jeans and lifted his chin. This was more than a challenge, more than any game. Angelico's eyes widened, just a little, their gaze locked, and then Angelico stepped forward and sank to his knees. He took orders, surprisingly. That was very good to know. Havoc didn't undress. He just pulled his cock free of his jeans and folded his arms. Angelico didn't hesitate. He sucked Havoc down with enthusiasm. His eyes stayed fixed on Havoc's face. Havoc let out a breath as Angelico went to work. Angelico's mouth was as talented as it looked. He used it to try and undo Havoc as quickly as possible. Havoc dropped a hand to Angelico's shoulder, his fingers digging in. Angelico groaned, but slowed down just enough. Havoc didn't have to say a word. Angelico was naked, and Son of Havoc was still fully clothed. The sounds Angelico was making were loud enough in the relative quiet, they sounded raw. Havoc ground out a noise. Even with Angelico slowing down, Havoc wasn't going to last all that long. He squeezed Angelico's shoulder tight, like a warning, but Angelico didn't draw off. He just worked harder. Son of Havoc came with a long groan. His grip hard on Angelico's shoulder. Angelico swallowed everything down and only drew off when Havoc pushed at his shoulder. Angelico licked his lips. He was smirking, but he was also breathing hard, and his pupils were blown wide. Havoc felt drained and sluggish, but he could still see and enjoy the effect he'd had on Angelico. He could also see how Angelico was now wrapping a hand around his own cock. Havoc watched intently, forcing away his tiredness, his gaze hot. He didn't want to miss this. Angelico hadn't gotten shy either. He was looking at Havoc as hard as Havoc was looking at him, and Angelico was breathing heavily, his chest heaving, his skin sweating. Havoc raised a hand and buried it in Angelico's hair. He tugged sharply, and without warning, he kept on tugging until Angelico came with a gasp that made Havoc twitch. He could feel a burn inching through him, like the end of a really good ride. Fuck! Angelico cursed, not bothering to get up. Yeah, Havoc agreed. The two of them looked at each other, still trying to catch their breath. Angelico was looking at Havoc like he was weighing something up. Obviously they were going to do this again. Havoc wasn't an idiot, and Angelico was many things, but he wasn't stupid. Like he'd kick this gift horse in the mouth, his next words proved it. Do you think, if we did that again, Ivelisse would strap something on and fuck me? Damn! Havoc didn't choke on his breath, but it's a near thing. That image, Ivelisse with her cast off and wearing a strap-on, fucking Angelico with powerful, confident strokes. She wouldn't be gentle, and Angelico's mouth would be on Son of Havoc's cock. Havoc's cock twitched hard in response. She'd probably insist on it, he replied at last. Definitely. Ivelisse was stood in the lounge doorway. Her crutches were nowhere to be seen. She could have been standing there for a while. They hadn't noticed her. They'd been too wrapped up in each other. Her expression wasn't jealous or disapproving, but it was intense, determined, greedy. It was like she'd already made up her mind. Still, she looked at Son of Havoc like she was checking something. Yeah, they still had issues to shout through, and they would. They always would. Right now, Havoc was preoccupied by the fucking gut punch of how much he'd missed the feel of her against him. Aww. And how they'd always fucked thoroughly and unmercifully, like everything always was with Ivelisse. Havoc could still feel that glorious heat, that good feeling, spreading through him. How much hotter would it get with Ivelisse present? That gut punch hit harder, and combined with the burn, their issues drifted even further away for now, and he knew Ivelisse was thinking the same thing. He knew Ivelisse. Come on. Ivelisse turned and began hopping away, clearly expecting to be followed. Angelico got to his feet and tweaked Son of Havoc's beard. He smelled like he needed another shower. He looked like it was the last thing on his mind. It suited him. Like this is the first time I fucked around an injury, he grinned. Come on! That was Ivelisse again. Havoc swatted Angelico's ass hard. Angelico smirked over his shoulder as full of himself as always. But he obeyed Ivelisse, and he sure didn't complain about the contact. Son of Havoc kicked off his boots as he followed. There was no way Dario had planned this. He'd obviously been hoping for a team implosion, and the titles getting won by somebody else, not a coming together, a tightening of bonds, in every way. Havoc closed his eyes briefly, then opened them to find Angelico sat on Ivelisse's bed. Ivelisse herself stood between his naked thighs, kissing him with a long string of commands as she pulled on his hair ruthlessly. Angelico had his hands on her hips, like he was helping support her stance, while also obeying orders. Yes, the burn roared through Son of Havoc, as relentless as Ivelisse, as ingratiating as Angelico. Fuck yes. The open road, indeed. The end. This story is entitled Melissa Santos' Own Ultima Lucha, and it is a Wrestlerotica original. What's wrong, Melissa? Melina asks after she encounters a sobbing Melissa Santos backstage after the Ultima Lucha finale taping. Santos looks up at her in a completely embarrassed state of mind. She can't believe how she is completely beside herself, and in her mind, in this spirit, she can't believe how she hasn't felt this way in oh so long. She can't even believe the last time she has ever been this happy. But she also couldn't describe what it was that was exciting her in this way. After all, she didn't even know that much about Melina. Sure, she had watched some of her career in the WWE, and she mostly respected her for what she had done. She had even forgiven her for the bra and panties matches that she had been in. After all, Santos could rationalize that it wasn't Melina's fault that she had participated in these events. She told herself it was the last vestiges of the WWE tiptoeing the line between a children's entertainment product or a more grown-up entity. And besides, she had done plenty of research on Vince McMahon, and she knew what kind of creep that he could be. What did she find with her research? It's most likely that at some point she discovered the infamous 2001 Playboy interview, where Vince at least shed some light into his own personality. No chance! No chance in hell! She recalled how in this interview, Vince mentioned that he said things like, "Anyway, I remember the two of us being so curious about each other's body, but not knowing what the hell to do. We would go into the woods and get naked together. It felt good, and for some reason, I wanted to put crushed leaves into her. Ew! Don't know why, but I remember that. I don't remember the first time I had intercourse, believe it or not. And also that, I'm a giver."
Each and every week here on Raw, I'm going to give away the sum of $1 million.
Whether it's performing in the ring or sexually, that's how I get off. I give. I get off on the number of orgasms a woman has, when I'm the reason she's having them. Santos didn't know exactly what to think about Melina, and still couldn't help but to struggle to figure out why Melina would have ever associated with a person like Vince. She just couldn't understand anybody who would be so desperate to need the attention of a man. Sure, she liked the attention of plenty of men, as long as they were good looking. In fact, she even found some of her co-workers extremely attractive. And in fact, this was part of the reason that Melina had discovered her backstage, sobbing slightly, and her makeup beginning to rough briefly. Her mascara begins to run slightly down her eyes. Melissa knew and felt devastated at the idea that tonight was Ultima Lucha, and it is possibly the last event that Lucha Underground would have.
No way, Jose.
She knew that she might never get to be around most of her co-workers again, with there being plenty of doubts about whether or not Lucha Underground would get a second season. Santos would be devastated that tonight was the last night that she would ever get to see most of these people again. And so, she continued to sulk, even in the presence of Melina. Melina continues to awkwardly attempt to comfort Melissa. Melina has changed a lot since the WWE. She has notably cut her hair, and yet, she still looks absolutely gorgeous. In fact, Santos can't help but to think how gorgeous she looks tonight. Melina is dressed in a black, long-sleeve shirt that is oddly super tight. In fact, one can't notice that her shirt reads, "This chick does the splits," and is likely available on ProWrestlingTees.com. Yet, one can't help but to notice how the shirt also has two thumbs that are pointing right at her 38D or an 85D in Japanese breast, which were enhanced in 2004, according to leading internet breast resource, boobpedia.com. Yep. Side note. Other female wrestlers' breast sizes, according to boobpedia.com. Michelle McCool at a 34C. Tammy Sitch at a D. Summer Rae at a 32D. Amber O'Neil, Kimberly Page, and Lizzie Borden all at 36Ds. Stephanie McMahon at a 40D. Trina Michaels at a 34E. And April Hunter and Tracy Brooks at a 40E. Side note number 2. It's funny how Boobpedia also gives information regarding a chick's underpit. Ladies with shaved pits include Mickie James, Scarlett Bordeaux, Mandy Leon, Joy Giovanni, Velvet Sky, Madison Rayne, Maurice Corlett, and more. Melina is also wearing extremely snug black pants. Her pants are studded with jewels that run across her waist, which are dazzling and illuminating the best part of her body. With these pants on, everybody is immediately drawn to the camel toe that can be seen rubbing against her tight pants. Melissa finally slows down her tears and looks over at Melina. She is absolutely stunned with what she sees. She can't believe how much she is blown away by the looks of Melina. All of a sudden, her thoughts begin to turn slightly less innocent as she begins to let her mind wander. And when her mind wanders, she begins to think about how she hasn't been with another person in so long and how much she wouldn't mind hooking up with someone as gorgeous as Melina. After all, Melissa knew that Melina had spent many years with Johnny Mundo / Morrison, both in kayfabe and real life. And if anybody could handle somebody as gorgeous as Johnny Mundo, then that person had to have some special talent, either that or a great personality. However, Melina never seemed to give off the feeling that she had a great personality. So, Santos had to assume that Melina must have been extremely gifted somewhere else. Melina finally notices that Melissa has stopped crying. Her once swollen eyes now seem to be gleaming with a hint of hope and optimism. Melina approaches Melissa again and asks her to cheer up. She tells Melissa that she has done a tremendous job with her performance this season. She then goes on to say, "Melissa dear, I've only shown up here tonight, and yet I've sat at home so many nights watching your performances on here, and I can't help but to say that night after night and episode after episode, I can't help but to be completely entranced in what you do. I can't believe that you aren't getting all the credit that you deserve for being such an integral part of this series. It's always people like you, the ring announcers, who truly don't get the respect and admiration that they deserve." Santos stands there stunned by the words that Melina has just spewed out. In some ways, she is completely baffled by the statements. In other ways, she can't help but to think that this is some kind of cruel joke. Burn! After all, what does Melina really have to offer to her? She is a veteran of the industry, and there is no way that she could ever truly want to be friends or even acquaintances with someone as low on the wrestling hierarchy as a lowly ring announcer. Though, she remains completely flattered and wants to know if Melina is truly being genuine or not. She also, once again, glances over at Melina's snug pants, at the snug camel toe that she noticed earlier. She notices herself staring. But she also notices that she can now see, ever so slightly, the lips of Melina's pussy through her pants. The other thing that she notices is she begins to feel a flush filling in her loins. In fact, she can begin to feel her juices flow throughout her body. Slowly but assuredly, she notices that her panties are beginning to slowly glisten and sap up the juices that her pussy is emitting. Her glands begin to moisten at a rapid pace, and her mind struggles to catch up. Melissa's mind is flush with emotion after emotion. She has never been with another female, and yet she can't help but to feel excited, albeit timid, about what is currently going on. She tries to formulate a sentence, but only gets out the following, Melina! I don't know if we should be doing this. Melina silences her by placing a tender and passionate kiss on her lips. Her soft lips brush and comfort the lips of Santos. Santos timidly kisses Melina back. Their lips connect, and the two begin kissing passionately. Their tongues wildly chase after the other one. This aggressive tug of war.
Just because we've been playing tonsil hockey doesn't mean you get to score the goal that's in my jockey.
Makes both ladies wilder and wilder. Within moments, both ladies had gotten a terrible case of wandering hands. Hands were being placed everywhere on each lady. Hands on each other's boobs, hands on each other's butts, hair being pulled, etc. The ladies had quickly escalated the pace, and soon there was no turning back. As soon as the clothes started to fly off, Melina and Melissa knew that this was going to be a special night. Melissa decided that she had finally been staring at that sexy camel toe for far too long tonight. She turned to Melina and said, Melina, baby, your pussy looks so snug and tasty in those pants, but I've been wanting to see your pussy all night. Baby, please get out of those pants. If you do, I will totally make it worth your while. After all, tonight is Ultima, Lucha, and tonight is supposed to be special, isn't it? Besides, I know that you can't refuse my offer to get a special treat from me. Melina simply shrugs and gives in to Melissa's pleas and whines as she slowly starts to remove her black pants. Melissa's eyes lit up when she notices that, as she suspected earlier, Melina wasn't wearing any underwear under those pants. She finally could see Melina's very well manicured mound. Damn, Melina! I can't believe that after so many years, I finally get an opportunity to finally see what so many others have only wished that they could see. You talk way too much, Melissa. You should stop flopping your jaw and use it for other things. I talk too much? Oh really, Melina? Well then, I guess you should probably just shut me up with whatever method you think is the most appropriate, Melissa says in a flirtatious manner. The two women are at a standoff. They both sit there staring at each other, trying to test which one is going to make the first move. Finally, Melina says, "Fuck this," as she makes her way towards Melissa and places a very wet and very passionate kiss on Melissa's lips. Melissa responds accordingly and begins to kiss Melina back. Slow, tender kisses quickly devolve into rapid, sloppy kisses between the two.
Introducing the all-new Super Sloppy Double Dare.
Their hands continue to explore the various surfaces of each other's bodies. Each and every time Melissa's hands wander near Melina's exposed vagina, she can already feel the warmth from it.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Her hands occasionally brushing against the pubes of Melina. She can tell that Melina is already beginning to get very wet. It isn't long before Melina takes complete control and orders Melissa to get onto her knees. Melina begins to push her meaty folds into Santos' mouth. Melissa willingly accepts this as a challenge and begins to lick the folds with an intensity and sex-driven mania. Oh God, baby! That feels so good! But this isn't a race, Melissa! Can you slow down just a little bit? I want to enjoy, oh God, this for a long while. She simply does as she is told and begins to ebb her pace, at least for a few moments. It isn't long though before she decides to incorporate her first finger. She gradually places one finger into Melina's now completely soaked beaver. Melina lets out an extremely loud moan.
Oh, God.
As the finger goes in. Melissa now alternates between eating Melina and fingering her. Melina's hips begin to rock, and the moans begin to escape both ladies. Santos takes this as a sign, and inserts her second finger, and then her third finger, into Melina. Melina lets out a deep, guttural growl, as Melissa is now 3 fingers deep in her throbbing clit. With every stroke of Melissa's fingers, Melina's vagina is getting wetter and wetter, as the pleasure seems to be overtaking Melina. Time is slipping away, and all Melina can think about is how great this feels, and how she truly hopes that this won't just be a one-off thing. She is unsure of why she is already planning her next sexual encounter with the gorgeous ring announcer. However, her questions are quickly answered as the talented Santos continues her pace, working the wet box of Melina. Melina knows that her orgasm is extremely close, and she tells Santos, "Oh God, baby! If you want to get me off, go for it! I need to! No! I have to! Come so soon!" Santos giggles. She knows that she is fully in control of this situation, and that is when she decides that she is going to pull away. She gets up off her knees and stands back up. Melina immediately tenses up and looks dejected. A pouting expression appears on her face before she can meekly mutter out the following. "What is going on, Melissa? I was so close to coming, and I thought that we were having fun. Why did you just decide to stop? Did I do something wrong?" She is met with silence. The locker room is filled with silence when only moments ago it was filled with the sounds of passionate sex. Melina again pleads to Melissa. "I thought that I was helping you. Listen, I don't know what changed. Just moments ago, you were so into this. I thought tonight was going to be special. You said that you wanted it to be special. Melissa! Answer me, damn it!" Again, Melissa just stands there, as motionless as a gargoyle on a church. "God damn it, Melissa! Answer me, you bitch!" Silence once again. Melissa could tell from the expression on Melina's face that she was starting to boil over. She was beginning to completely lose her cool, and that's when Melissa once again laughed and knew that she was in complete control of the situation. "You told me that I talked too much. I was just following your orders, dear." Melissa finally spoke up and said. Melina could feel all of the blood rush to her face as her fiery personality finally unleashed itself. She started screaming at Melissa at the top of her lungs. "Damn you! This is all just a game to you, isn't it? I doubt you were even sad at all tonight. You just wanted to lure me into this room with you, where you could finally get what you wanted. And well, it worked. God damn did it work. So now that you have me, are you going to finish what you started?" "No, dear. We're going to finish what we started." Aww. "Yes, you are right. I did want to have this meeting tonight, so I played up my sadness a bit. Yes, I don't want Lucha Underground to be ending, and I'm optimistic that Season 2 will eventually happen."
Yes! Yes! Yes!
However, there is no way that I could not do everything in my power to meet you. But what we have right now is special, so let's stop talking again and continue where we left off. Santos exclaims, "Fine by me," Melina states before finally rushing back, in for another kiss from Santos. Their lips lock again in another highly aggressive mouth war. Santos, still fully dressed in a dress, finally decides to strip off her dress. Melina is now even more aroused and fiery than before. She places her mouth immediately onto Melissa's sweltering breast and begins suckling and flicking her nipples with wet and long tongue licks. Her hands wander up and down Melissa Santos' body before finally finding her hands just outside the ring announcer's freshly trimmed muff. A finger now slips into Melissa and begins to slowly roll in and out. "Oh, you naughty girl! I love how your fingers fill within me," Santos replies. She also begins to coo as the finger begins gliding ever deeper into her. "Is that really all that you have for me?" she asks, mocking Melina. Melina responds by inserting 2 more fingers into Melissa's slippery canal. The pace of the fingers also quickens. Santos can't contain her tufty manner for any longer, as the locker room is once again filled with the moans, groans, and growls of passion. "Melina! Oh God! That feels so good! I love feeling your fingers jam deep within my canal. Do you think that you can fit any more in there? You want more? More! I'm already 3 fingers in you. I didn't know what a filthy whore you were," Melina declares. "Only for you, baby. You are making me into a filthy goddamn whore. And I have to be honest, I fucking love it. I love how wild you are making me." So do it already! Give me everything you have, and then give me more. With that being said, Melina had no choice. She inserted both her fourth and fifth fingers into Melissa's now gaping hole. The final finger went in with a bit of a struggle, but after Santos finally completely relaxed, Melina was able to get it into her. Melina couldn't believe that this was actually happening. It was only a few hours earlier when she shockingly returned. There was no conceivable way that she could have ever expected her night to go like this. She didn't expect that she would be having any kind of sex tonight, much less sex with the gorgeous ring announcer. And now, here she was, in the backstage locker room, now fisting the tasty starlet. Melina lunged her fist in and out of Melissa's ever-widening hole. As she did so, she could feel her whole hand getting completely flooded with Melissa's juices. Her arm now getting coated further and further with Melissa's secretions. It didn't take long before Melissa screamed out, "Oh! Oh! Oh! Ah! Oh my God! Oh my God! Yes! That's it! Keep going! I am so close!" Melina somehow managed to quickly remove her whole fist. She was going to return the favor from earlier. If Melissa could tease her, then she could tease Melissa just as well, if not better. At least, that's what she was going for. She looked seductively into the eyes of Melissa and stated, "I'm just as good as you are at driving you wild. Look at yourself. Hell, look at me. I am absolutely soaked with your fluids, and yet, I can still tease the shit out of you. What's the matter, baby? You don't like this game?" Melissa slowly shook her head no. Melina cackled loudly. "But this is your game! You created this, and then you wanted to escalate it. Well, lucky for you, I too like to escalate things. And you better believe that I'm not done with that sexy body just yet. Oh no! I'm afraid that I have something else for you." Melissa likes what she is hearing. However, she does have a slight sense of trepidation. She had, after all, just been fisted by Melina. What else could Melina have for her? Was it Johnny Mundo? She quickly wondered if perhaps the Prince of Parkour had been hiding somewhere listening and watching this entire erotic performance take place. She briefly looked around and checked all the corners of the locker room before she reassured herself that there was no possible way that somebody else could be in this room. However, Melina quickly walked across the room, and Santos was once again worried that she was going to walk over to the locker room door and open it up. She didn't know much about Melina and was always cautious around new people. While she wasn't afraid to hide her sexuality in private situations, Melissa was also always concerned with professionalism. One of her greatest fears was that she would lose the respect of any of her fellow co-workers. What would they think, after all, if they had just witnessed her being completely humiliated sexually? Was Melina playing a trick on her? Was she about to just swing open the door to reveal the entire roster waiting behind it? Melissa's mind was playing tricks on her. Melina really had driven her wild. She was quickly relieved and relaxed when she saw Melina bend over and reach for something in a bag that she had placed near the locker room door. Melissa relaxed and knew that her surprise was something in the bag. She also couldn't help but to check out Melina's tanned and muscular ass as she bent over. Her backside was just as beautiful as her front side.
Bitch, she got a great ass, and you got your head all the way up it.
Melissa's paranoia quickly subsided as she took in these views, as she was once again overtaken by a large wave of desire. Melissa grew impatient and yelled at Melina, "Hurry the fuck up! I want you to finish me off. And besides, I don't need any surprises. You are more than enough, baby. Now, get that sexy ass over here and take me." Melina turned around and said to Melissa, "Relax. I have your surprise right here. Well, actually, it is for the both of us." At that moment, Melissa notices the large, two-sided dildo that Melina has removed from her bag. Her eyes light up. She had never used a double-sided dildo before, and she was rather excited to try something new.
That's the spirit!
She did find it peculiar that Melina seemed to have the dildo handy. She jokingly turned to Melina and asked, "So, do you always travel with that toy?" Melina laughed before responding, "Not always. Actually, I didn't come here with this today. I merely was getting it back from a friend." Melissa hesitated before asking her next question. "You lend your sex toys to your friend? What kind of friendship is that?" "Well, the kind of friendship that I hope we are going to have. I mean, after all, who needs men when you can have a close-knit circle of friends?" Melina replies. Melissa thought about that idea. It would be nice to have a group of girlfriends like that. After all, it was difficult being a female in the wrestling industry, even in a promotion who was as progressive as Lucha Underground. Melissa then wondered which friend it was. There weren't that many other females involved in Lucha Underground. She mustered up the courage to ask, "Do you want to tell me which one of your friends was borrowing that?" "Oh, I don't mind letting you know that. It's hardly a secret that Sexy Star and Catrina are a couple, as well as one of my partners. They wanted to add some spice in their bedroom, and they weren't sure if a dildo like this was for them. So I thought, what the hell, I'll let them borrow it. With some cleaning, it's practically good as new. You wouldn't even know that they use it, to be honest, if I didn't tell you." Melina rambles on. "But, since you do know, doesn't the thought turn you on even more? I know that it turns me on, just thinking about whose juices have been on that dildo. It also turns me on, knowing that yours are also about to be on it."
Yes! 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 Yes!
You know, it does turn me on. I can't deny how attractive both Sexy Star and Catrina are, Santos states. Melina and Melissa face towards each other and begin to insert the dildo into their vaginas. With an end coming out of Melina and an end coming out of Melissa, the two begin to slowly grind up and down the dildo. Wet, loud, squishy sounds emitted throughout the locker room. The two ladies maniacally continued to drive the dildo into their vaginas. "Damn it, Melina! I can't believe how good this feels. I love that you brought this surprise. Fuck, yes it does. The echoing of moans and sounds of slapping skin continue for 6 or 7 more minutes. Finally, Melissa bellows, "Oh my god, Melina! I don't know how much I can take. All of this teasing has really gotten me so close to coming. Between the dildo and your fisting earlier, I'm about to absolutely explode. I'm close too. You have me so close." Another few minutes passed before finally both women were at the precipice of pleasure and ecstasy. And finally, both women came hard and loudly. Melina felt a huge puddle of cum and heard it splatter everywhere. Melissa had squirted on the locker room floor and all over Melina's body. Melina wasn't fazed in the least. She merely wiped up whatever amount of cum she could get onto her fingers. She placed them in her mouth, slurping up any of her partner's cum. The two were exhausted and were breathing heavily. Naked and fully exhausted, the two cuddled on the locker room floor for a while. They would occasionally kiss ever so often, and they would playfully still grab at each other's nipples. But finally they knew that this moment had passed. Melina turned to Melissa. "That was so great. However, I'm in desperate need of a shower, and you look like you could use one too. Luckily, they are nearby." Melissa agreed with Melina. "Yes, the shower does sound good right now. Who knows? Maybe we could have a round too." With little more being said, the two quickly scampered to the shower. Both ladies knew that this was just the beginning of a glorious new friendship. Unbeknownst to them, Johnny Mundo actually was waiting outside the locker room the entire time. He had heard everything and had heard them scamper off towards the showers. He knew that he wanted a souvenir to remember this day forever. He briefly opened the locker room door and scampered over to the pile of clothes that Melina and Melissa had left laying there. Mundo quickly found a lacy thong, which Melissa was wearing earlier. Mundo grabbed them from the pile and quickly pressed his nose into the still, extremely wet gusset. He took a long sniff, and then another sniff of the panties. "God damn, this bitch is sitting so fucking good." But if she catches me still in her panties again, she said she is going to file a sexual harassment complaint against me. Dario doesn't need any more reasons to go after me, even more next season. I better get the fuck out of here. Mundo quickly rushed out of the locker room. The door slammed loudly. Eventually Melina and Melissa returned after their shower. They began putting back on their clothes when Melissa exclaimed, "What the hell? I can't find my underwear! Do you see them? You know, the lacy red thong." "Sorry, babe. I have no idea where your underwear is. It's been a long day, though. Let's go to my hotel. I highly doubt that you are going to need those panties anyway tonight." Melissa sighed, but then smiled. She was going to Melina's hotel tonight. The night had just begun, and yet Ultima Lucha was already so perfect. The end. Thank you for listening to episode 23 of Wrestlerotica. We hope that you enjoyed this week's stories. If you liked this week's stories, please be sure to like us and review us on iTunes. As always, be sure to check us out on Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter, and as always, our official site, WrestleRoticaPod.com. Thank you and have a good week.